We start with developments from Australia as the Prime Minister Scott Morrison has announced that fully vaccinated Australians will be able to enter and leave the country freely from November. It's the first time they'll be able to do so without permission since Australia closed its international borders in March 2020 because of the coronavirus pandemic. And it means millions of Australians can travel out of the country, and some 45,000 Australians who are currently abroad will be able to at last return home. Let's take a listen to what Scott Morrison had to say.
It will be time very soon that we will be able to open those international borders again, and that will enable Australians who are fully vaccinated and Australians and residents of Australia who are overseas who are fully vaccinated to be able to travel again and to be able to lift those caps. This will happen next month. That's when it'll start.
So what does this all mean practically? People will be able to travel when their state's vaccination rate hits 80%. New South Wales, which includes Sydney, is on track to be the first state to cross that 80% threshold in a few weeks' time. And then there's Victoria, containing Melbourne. They are not far behind. States such as Queensland and Western Australia say they may keep their borders closed until vaccine rates are even higher. And Australia's 14-day hotel quarantine, which costs each traveller over $2,000 is to be phased out. It will be replaced by 7 days of home quarantine for vaccinated travellers. Travel will not immediately be open to foreigners, but the government says it is working towards welcoming tourists back to our shores. Our Australia correspondent Shaimaa Khalil is in Sydney with the very latest.
Fully vaccinated is the key, and 80% vaccination for states is also the key for this highly and hugely anticipated and really a very emotional moment for many Australians here in the country, but also abroad as well. The Prime Minister, in his announcement, said that states who have reached 80% vaccination will be able to open international travel, and those who are traveling and coming back, or those who are coming back from overseas, will go into a 7-day quarantine, home quarantine. Essentially, this is the end of hotel quarantine, which means that those thousands and thousands of stranded Australians are going to be able to come back home much more easily, and it will be a much more straightforward process because there will be no caps on arrival. As it stands, New South Wales, where I am, will be the first state to open its borders internationally. There are still a lot of details to iron out, especially the proof of vaccination, whether it's certificates or passports or QR codes, a lot of details about that, but also the fact that different states have approached their COVID-19 outbreaks differently. So New South Wales has decided it is going to live with the virus, it's going to reach 80%, and it will open up. Queensland and Western Australia, they have a very different picture there. They're still going for elimination, they're still going for zero COVID, and they've always been the strictest, always the first to close, always reluctant to open their borders. So we still don't know where they stand on international borders because it will mean a spike in COVID-19 cases. So you could have a scenario in the near future where someone in Sydney, where I am, for example, will be able to travel to London or Paris or New York, but they won't be able to travel to Perth or Brisbane because these states will still be closed. So it will be an interesting, if confusing, scenario, but I think generally a huge sigh of relief for many Australians with overseas travel, now an option for so many people after nearly 2 years of being isolated.
Well, let's continue with this story. I'm joined now by Viviana Medeiros, a Sydney resident whose fiancé is in South Africa and currently unable to enter the country. Viviana, in light of the current circumstances, your personal circumstances, how have you taken this news?
Hi, Krupa. Thanks for having me. Unfortunately, it's not benefiting myself and my partner at this stage, but we are happy for all the Australians that will be able to get home. There are many stranded Australians at the moment, and there are many Australians here in Australia wanting to fly out to see their families and to reunite and just to, have their children meet their parents and grandchildren.
Lots of hopes pinning on this reopening in November, as you've just said there. But of course, that doesn't erase so much of what's happened in terms of the separations of the past 18 months. And you've obviously been impacted by this. Just tell us what the past 18 months have been like for you and your fiancé.
Oh, well, it has been extremely difficult. It's been emotional. It has impacted everything, all of our plans, our history, the way that it's been written. It's changed absolutely everything for us, and we'll never get that time back, as you say. We've had to postpone many things, our wedding inclusive, having another child, and just being able to live together, and Christmas and New Year's, all those important milestones, anniversaries, all of them have been missed. And just like myself, millions have gone through the exact same thing.
Yes, sentiment shared by so many around the world. I know that you're part of a social media group which looks to helping Australians reunite. What have people been saying there?
Not much positive things, to be honest. A lot of people, they're questioning this. They don't believe it. They don't believe it's true until it does happen, because we have been told in the past, in November last year, we were told that, stranded Australians would be able to come home. But of course, that didn't happen. So I don't think they're very happy. And just to add, this doesn't help any visa holders. It doesn't help anyone that is an Australian. If you do have family outside of Australia that are not Australian citizens at this time, it does not help us. So I guess they're very anxiously awaiting that moment.
Viviana, good to speak to you. We wish you all the very best, and I do hope you are reunited with your fiancé very soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.